everybody. Before I get into the story for today, I wanted to say another thank you to Dylan and his family for mailing me all these books. That was so sweet of you guys. So I'm gonna read this story that Dylan picked for you guys. Okay, we talked about it on Friday before he logged off, and he chose this story with me. He asked me also. Before I read, I wanted to share an idea that I think would be really fun and really creative for you guys. Okay, so instead of doing a story elements chart, I wanted to break from that, and I wanted to have you guys use a little bit of your creativity. Okay, so if you guys read a story at home, or it could be one of the ones that I read here, I want you guys to think about what would happen next if you had to continue the story, right? Like if you wanted a part 2 to the story, how would it continue for you, right? So I'm gonna read this story, and then I'm gonna kind of brainstorm a little bit to give you an idea. And then for every story that you read, I want you guys to have an idea of what you would change or what would happen next, right? Instead of, you know, in one of the fairy tales, and they lived happily ever after, you know, what does happily ever after mean? You know, did they move to a bigger castle? Did they move to the city? Did they have babies? I want you guys to think of what would happen next. I think that would be really fun. Okay, so on to our story. So this story is written by our famous author Eric Carle. Most of you guys know him. He has a lot of the same style of illustrations. So most of his illustrations are actually collage works, which is really cool. He made the Very Hungry Caterpillar that you guys know. So the title of this story is A House for Hermit Crab. Okay. Very pretty colors I see. And look, it looks like this is paint in here. How pretty. Okay. So let me position myself this way so you guys can see a little bit. Time to move, said Hermit Crab one day in January. I've grown too big for this little shell. He had felt safe and snug in his shell, but now it was too snug. Hermit Crab stepped out of the shell and onto the floor of the ocean, but it was frightening out in the open sea without a shell to hide in. What if big fish comes along and attacks me? He thought. I must find a new house soon. So you see, he used to live in this little thing right here, in this little shell, and now he was too big. So now he has to be all alone without it. Early in February, Hermit Crab found just the house he was looking for. It was a big shell and strong. He moved right in, wiggling and waggling about to see inside how it felt. It felt just right, but it looked so, well, so plain, thought Hermit Crab. Look at it right here. In March, Hermit Crab met some sea anemones. They swayed gently back and forth in the water. How beautiful you are, said Hermit Crab. Would one of you be willing to come and live on my house? It is so plain and it needs you. I'll come, whispered a small sea anemone. Gently, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and put it on his shell. So the sea anemones is where the clownfish live, you know, like where Nemo lives. So he didn't like how his shell looked, and instead of just being sad about it, he came up with a solution, and he's choosing to like decorate it. In April, Hermit Crab passed a flock of starfish moving slowly along the seafloor. How handsome you are, said Hermit Crab. Would one of you be willing to decorate my house? I would, signaled a little sea star. Carefully, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and put it on his house. In May, Hermit Crab discovered some coral. They were hard and didn't move. "How pretty you are," said Hermit Crab. "Would one of you be willing to help make my house more beautiful?" "I would," creaked a crusty coral. Gingerly, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and placed it on his shell. In June, Hermit Crab came to a group of snails crawling over a rock on the ocean floor. They grazed as they went, picking up algae and bits of debris, and leaving a neat path behind them. "How tidy and hard-working you are," said Hermit Crab. "Would one of you be willing to come and help clean my house?" "I would," offered some of the snails. Happily, Hermit Crab picked them up with his claw and placed them on his shell. In July, Hermit Crab came upon several sea urchins. They had sharp, prickly needles. "How fierce you look," said Hermit Crab. "Would one of you be willing to protect my house?" "I would," answered a spiky sea urchin. Gratefully, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and placed it near his seashell. In August, Hermit Crab and his friends wandered into a forest of seaweed. "It's so dark here," thought Hermit Crab. "How dim it is," murmured the sea anemone. "How gloomy it is," whispered the starfish. "How murky it is," complained the coral. "I can't see," said the snail. "It's like nighttime," cried the sea urchin. So they were all pretty negative. In September, Hermit Crab spotted a school of lanternfish darting through the dark water. "How bright you are," said Hermit Crab. "Would one of you be willing to light up our house?" "I would," replied one lanternfish, and it swam over near the shell. In October, the Hermit Crab approached a pile of smooth pebbles. "How sturdy you are," said Hermit Crab. "Would you mind if I rearranged you?" "Not at all," whispered the pebbles. Hermit Crab picked them up one by one with his claw and built a wall around his shell. "Now my house is perfect," cheered Hermit Crab. So look at all the things he has on his shell. But in November, Hermit Crab felt that his shell seemed a bit too small. Little by little over the year, Hermit Crab had grown. Soon, he would have to find another, bigger home. But he had to come to love his friends, the sea anemone, the starfish, the coral, the sea urchin, the snail, the lanternfish, and even the smooth pebbles. "They've been so good to me," thought Hermit Crab. "They're like a family. How can I ever leave them?" In December, a smaller Hermit Crab passed by. "I have outgrown my shell," she said. "Would you know a place for me?" "I have outgrown my house too," answered Hermit Crab. "I must move on. You are welcome to live here, but you must promise to be good to my friends." "I promise," said the little crab. The following January, Hermit Crab stepped out and the little crab moved in. "Couldn't stay in that little shell forever," said Hermit Crab as he waved goodbye. The ocean floor looked wider than he remembered, but Hermit Crab wasn't afraid. Soon, he spied the perfect house. A big, empty shell. It looked, well, a little plain, but Sponges, he thought. Barnacles, clownfish, sand dollars, electric eels. Oh, there's so many possibilities. I can't wait to get started. The end. So, for my friends who would like to try the activity that I was saying of creating your own ending. So let's say you didn't like how it ended, that he had to start all over again and that he was happy. Maybe he could find one that was already decorated, that somebody else had done like that. Or maybe you can choose different things that he's decorating his house with. You know, like there's so many different possibilities. Maybe he made a friend and the friend was willing to help him decorate. There's so many possibilities. So the thing is that when you're an author, you get to choose your ending. But as a reader, we get to use our imagination, okay? And we could change them a little bit in our head, and that would be kind of cool. So if you do change the ending of a story or think of something else that you would like to do to a story, share that with me. I would love to hear it. Okay, bye guys.